Look, let's be honest, if you're getting your news from, say, the same people who thought a coin toss was a reasonable way to settle a congressional election, you might not be getting the full picture. And when it comes to Gaza, that picture is looking more and more like a goddamn Picasso painting. It's fragmented, distorted, and frankly pretty fucking horrifying, because if Gaza's genocide feels invisible, it's because corporate media designed it that way. They've got this whole playbook, see, and it's about as subtle as a brick through a hospital window. So buckle up, because we're about to break down the 5 steps to making a genocide disappear, media style. Alright, step 1 in this masterclass of misinformation is the old both sides song and dance. You know the routine? Israel says jump, media asks how high. Hamas sneezes, and suddenly it's terrorists unleashed. We're treated to a never-ending parade of Israeli spokespeople, polished and articulate, explaining how they're just trying to mow the lawn while maintaining a surgical approach. And the data backs this up. A recent study showed that the BBC, that bastion of unbiased reporting, quoted Israeli officials nearly 3 times more often than Palestinian ones. The New York Times? Don't even get me started. They're basically running a PR firm for the IDF at this point. But it's not just about quantity, it's about framing. We're shown tearful Israeli soldiers traumatized by the horrors of war. And who can blame them? War is hell. But where are the tears for the Palestinian children pulled from the rubble? Oh right, those are hidden behind a graphic content warning, because apparently dead Palestinian children are a bit too spicy for your morning coffee. This isn't journalism, folks, it's emotional manipulation disguised as balanced reporting. It's like saying, well, the arsonist is quite upset about the fire, but let's not forget the homeowner who tragically forgot to update their fire insurance. Now, if you're wondering how they managed to square this both sides narrative with the, mountains of evidence to the contrary, well, that brings us to step 2, the disappearing dead. Because when it comes to Palestinian casualties, the media has a remarkable case of selective amnesia. You see, outlets like Al Jazeera, those brave souls actually reporting from the ground in Gaza, will show you the horrifying reality. Thousands dead, entire families wiped out. But then, you flip over to CNN, and suddenly, those numbers have magically shrunk. It's like a game of morbid telephone where the death toll gets lower with every retelling. And don't even bother with Fox News. They're more interested in tallying up the Hamas death count like it's some kind of gruesome baseball game. The message is clear: Palestinian lives are cheap, easily dismissed, and quickly forgotten. They're just numbers on a screen, redacted and minimized until they disappear altogether. Of course, no media blackout would be complete without a healthy dose of victim blaming, and that's where step 3 comes in. The human shield's hypnosis. This is where things get truly insidious, because not only are they erasing Palestinian deaths, they're actively justifying them. The narrative goes something like this: Israel never targets civilians. If civilians die, it's because Hamas is using them as human shields. It's a convenient excuse, repeated ad nauseum, despite mountains of evidence to the contrary. MSF Doctors Without Borders, hardly a hotbed of Hamas sympathizers, have repeatedly stated that they've witnessed Israeli strikes on hospitals, schools, and shelters, places where civilians, tend to congregate when they're being bombed. And then there's the whole rockets fired from civilian areas claim. The IDF loves to trot out these fancy animations showing Hamas militants launching rockets from crowded marketplaces. But when independent journalists actually go to those locations, guess what they find? Empty streets. The human shields narrative is a lie, plain and simple. It's a way to dehumanize Palestinians, to make them responsible for their own deaths, and to absolve Israel of any wrongdoing. It's propaganda 101, and the media is eating it up with a spoon. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, this is all very complicated. Surely there's more to this story than just good guys and bad guys, and you'd be right. There is a lot more to this story. Decades, in fact, of history and context that the media conveniently forgets to mention. Which brings us to step 4, the context eraser. Because you see, you can't understand what's happening in Gaza without understanding the decades of occupation, the displacement of Palestinians, the siege, the checkpoints, the daily humiliations. Palestinian journalist. As one Palestinian journalist put it, it's like reporting on a 2-minute boxing match without mentioning the previous 11 rounds. But the media doesn't have time for all that nuance. They're too busy churning out headlines about clashes and conflict, as if this is some kind of playground spat between two equals. They throw around terms like Hamas and Gaza Strip without ever explaining what those words actually mean, what they represent. It's like trying to understand Shakespeare without knowing a lick of Elizabethan English. You might get the gist, but you're missing the whole damn point. And finally, the cherry on top of this shit sundae of misinformation is step 5, the unverified trap. Because when it comes to evidence, well, let's just say the playing field is about as level as a bombed-out building in Gaza. An Israeli spokesperson can go on air and claim that a hospital was a legitimate military target with absolutely zero evidence, and the media will lap it up like it's manna from heaven. But when Palestinian sources, the people actually living through this nightmare, provide photographic evidence, eyewitness accounts, even goddamn drone footage, it's suddenly unverified. It's almost comical, if it weren't so tragic. Journalists are literally being arrested for documenting mass graves, while the IDF is busy handing out press releases about how much they regret the loss of innocent life. It's a blatant double standard, and it's designed to silence Palestinian voices, to cast doubt on their experiences, and to maintain the illusion of Israeli innocence. So there you have it. The 5 steps to making a genocide disappear, courtesy of your friendly neighborhood media. They're not just covering the news, they're covering up a genocide. And they're doing it with your consent, your complicity, every time you uncritically consume their carefully curated version of events. But here's the good news, you're not powerless. You have a voice, you have a platform, and you have a responsibility to share the truth. Share this video. Seek out independent media. Amplify Palestinian voices, don't let them disappear. Gazan child, don't let us disappear.